Hi everyone and welcome to How Good's Footy in Asia, AFL Asia's official podcast. I'm your co-host Matty Gale in Osaka, Japan, and we've got Bill Bang Bang Krang over there in Saigon, Vietnam. We'll get to you shortly, Billy Bang Bang Krangworth, but today we have a special guest from the Hawthorn Football Club. Picked 35 in the 2020 AFL Draft as a former AFL National Academy member. And he was to be the captain of the Eastern Rangers NAB League team last year, but unfortunately the COVID-19 ruined season didn't allow him to bestow his leadership for last year. But we welcome Connor Downie to the podcast. We've had you lined up for a while, Connor, but finally great to have you on board.
That's all right. Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. Just talking before with the coronavirus situation around the grounds, it's great to see footy back and the crowds are out in force and back up to 75%. And we did see the Brisbane Lions are in the second week of their stay in Melbourne with the Bulldogs coming up. An interesting clash in itself. But Bill, how's things over in Saigon before we start?
Yeah, very, very good actually. There's been a few little issues with people coming in and out of the country, getting under the radar, but they've squashed them all recently, from what we're told. So in a really good spot.
Yeah, excellent. We had 878 cases here in
Wow.
Osaka yesterday. Phenomenal, and it's the world record cases the last 2 days. Tokyo's just come out of a state of emergency, and I can imagine we're all going to be back in that situation very shortly. We'll get to Connor's situation last year, more importantly, with his COVID-interrupted season. But, Bill, I'm going to give you the new ball, the Red Rock. You can open the bowling from the northern end.
Thanks, mate. Connor, I just wanted to go back. Now, I don't think Matty mentioned it, but the real strong link to AFL Asia is obviously that your mum's Chinese. And there are now a few Asian descent players in the AFL, but that's a great link to us. We'll discuss a few of the other connections to China through the podcast. Can you just tell us about your family and your early years in general?
Yeah, so obviously my mum, she was born in China and she moved over to Australia when she was 24. And then from there, she also met my dad, who's from Australia. And yeah, I was born in 2002 and sort of grew up in Melbourne, Australia, in sort of local Forest Hill suburbs, and grew up playing footy from a young age, and I've sort of loved it ever since.
Yep. So how did your parents actually meet?
Yeah, I think they went to the same university. So I think they sort of met through mutual friends, like a lot of couples do, I guess.
Yep.
So just on your Chinese heritage, where exactly is your mum from?
Yeah, so she grew up in a few different places. She originally was born in Xinhuangdao, and then she also spent 10 years before she moved to Australia in Xiamen. So, yeah, I think Xiamen definitely in the southern end of China before she moved over to Australia.
Yeah, excellent. Just on your Chinese heritage, how many times have you been to China in your lifetime?
Yeah, so I've been twice. Once when I was really young, around 4 years old, and the second time when I was a bit older, I think I was 13 years old when I went second time. And yeah, I still have really vivid memories of sort of visiting China and seeing my family over there and sort of going to all the different locations.
Righto, I'll give you my only Chinese word, ni hao. But that's about it for me. Now, we've done a bit of research as we need to with every podcast interview. We know that you went to Chinese school on Saturdays, and we'll talk more about how that switched with your footy later on. But how much Chinese do you actually know? Can you read the Chinese characters at all?
Yeah, so my mum sort of started sending me to Chinese school when I was 4 years old. So I sort of went until high school, and then at high school I just learnt Chinese all the way through, and yeah, I only sort of finished it in VCE last year. So hopefully I'll find a way to keep learning it now that I'm playing footy. But yeah, I was pretty fluent, and then still am, I guess, but it's sort of chop and change is like, I guess I can have a sort of an average conversation with someone in Chinese.
Wow, that's incredible. you don't know me from a bar, so but I've got a Japanese wife, and so my kids speak Japanese, but their English is a little bit to be desired at this stage. But they're only young, only 6 and 3, almost 3. But must be incredibly helpful for you to be bilingual. Do you speak to your mum in Chinese, or do you speak in English?
Yeah, well, I guess as the years have gone on, I've sort of spoken to her more in English than I'd have in Chinese. But especially when I was young, my mum always spoke to me in Chinese, and she'd always just, tell me what to do in Chinese and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess it's a bit of both at the moment.
Yeah, that's incredible. I just find it really difficult that when my boys they're crying or they crack the shits, that I got no idea what they're trying to complain about. I know that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is what it is. Just before we get on to the footy, did you have any other interests growing up as a kid? Were you into music, sports, other sports, anything that garnished your eye?
Yeah, I guess did a bit of everything. I guess played a bit of guitar when I was growing up, and obviously liked to hang out with friends, and yeah, played a bit of basketball, cricket, and athletics. Wasn't too good at cricket or basketball, but I was alright at athletics. Used to compete at school, and yeah, it was good fun. But footy was always sort of the main sport that I loved from a young age.
Yeah, no, that's true. We've seen the video, which we'll get on to a bit later, about your background story over the last 12 months getting into the AFL. Take us back to all those years ago. You're only young, you're only still 18, but getting your first footy and going for kicks with your dad. Yeah,
well, I don't remember this, but my parents always tell me how they took me to the city one day and they sort of bought me a cheap footy from one of the stores, and that's sort of how I sort of came to love the game of football. And I remember when I moved house to where I am living now, when I was about 4 years old, all my new friends at preschool just loved footy. They all went to Collingwood, so I went to Collingwood as well, and they all did Auskick, and I ended up joining Auskick as well. So I guess that's how I sort of started getting involved in the football community. But yeah, my parents definitely sort of, I guess, introduced me to the game.
Now, so there's obviously I think your dad was saying you're in Fed Square having a kick and then buying a footy. They can take credit for that, but it's a long way to that's the AFL, but even the TAP Cup, NAB Cup, and all those things. How did your footy develop from the Auskick even days? How did you get serious about it? And at what stage did you realise, like, hang on, I'm going to have a real dig at this?
Yeah, so I guess I was playing for a team called Forest Hills Zebras, which is quite a small local team. And that was when I played there from Auskick through to under 15s.
Yep.
And sort of my last couple of years there, I had pretty strong seasons, and I was lucky enough to get the call up. Actually, one of my school teachers sort of called up one of the rep teams and asked if they could have a look at me and see how I go, and then ended up sort of playing in one of the rep carnivals and going pretty well. And I sort of got a lot of confidence from that, and that sort of kickstarted my journey towards professional football, I guess. And I just kept growing in confidence and kept developing my skills, and sort of went through the pathways like Eastern Rangers and all that. So I guess that's how I definitely kickstarted that.
So in 2019, you were good enough, lucky enough to be selected to play for Vic Metro. How was that experience? And also, who were some of the players you played with that have also come into the league since then?
Yeah, I was really fortunate to be able to play a game in the under 18s. And although I didn't play too well and it was only one game, it was definitely, I took so much sort of learnings from that, just the standard and just what level I needed to be at if I wanted to A, have a good season in 2020, and B, obviously get drafted and be successful in the AFL. So I definitely took a lot of lessons out of that. But I guess sort of the players that come to mind are really Matt Rao, Noah Anderson, those boys, and also lucky enough to play with Finn McGuinness, who is at Hawthorn with me now. So that was when I first met him as well.
Fantastic. Now, Matty does a lot more research than me, but he's given me the notes here that you were able to join the Australian National Academy and play in the Australian Guernsey. So who did you play, and can you tell us about the experience of wearing that Australian Guernsey?
Yeah, so it was like the under-17s NAB AFL Academy team, which sort of represents Australia, and that's sort of selected from sort of your early games in that year, and also your bottom age 16s carnival. So I probably didn't have the best 16s carnival, but sort of I learned a lot from that and had a really good pre-season and started the season really well. So I got called up for that quite late. And it's probably to this day still one of my greatest sort of honours, being able to pull on the Australian jersey. Obviously, not many AFL athletes, let alone athletes in Australia, get to actually represent their country. So that was for sure one of the best experiences in my life. And yeah, we ended up playing New Zealand, which was just a mix of like just all ages New Zealand sort of football players from Australia and New Zealand, and we sort of all came together and played sort of an exhibition game at Marvel Stadium, which was awesome.
Yeah, we're not going to blow our trumpets, but Bill and I have represented Japan and Vietnam respectively, but we could only dream of representing Australia. I'll still have dreams of putting on the baggy green hat, but it's never going to happen. Doesn't end well. Let's move on to the Next Generation Academy. It's a concept that's been around for a while now. When exactly did you start going down to Hawthorn as part of the Next Generation Academy commitments or opportunities? Or were you just aligned to the Hawthorn Footy Club because of where you live?
Yeah, so I actually joined the academy. I joined the academy when it was sort of first created. I remember sort of one of the parents at my local footy clubs sort of sent me an article or just showed me an article about sort of how you can apply, because it was a new concept back then, and I applied for like this open kind of thing, kind of set up, and yeah, it was pretty low key at the time. Like it was sort of just at a primary school, and they just had some footy clinics and all that. And I think it was a Hawthorn staff went down and just having a kick and doing a few drills and that, and sort of went from there. And it was still pretty low key then as well. Like there was sort of some training sessions every week with like it was pretty similar to like the Eastern Rangers squad in a way. Then after that sort of block of training sessions, they sort of brought in players who were actually qualified for the multicultural/Indigenous sort of program, and that's where I sort of came in, and there was sort of a smaller group of us that went in occasionally to sort of see the club and do a few training sessions, and yeah, that's sort of how it came about.
2020 season comes along. I know Darren Buick, he had you earmarked in a leadership capacity moving forward out of that 2019 season, and you did a stack of work developing your leadership skills, and you get announced as the captain for the 2020 season. Unfortunately, COVID-19 hits. You don't actually get to play any games, but I guess you had to take on some extra responsibilities that spawned off of that because of COVID-19. How did you approach that as a non-playing team and a non-playing captain at Eastern Rangers in season 2020?
Yeah, so obviously it was an honour to be announced captain of the team. So my bottom age year experienced like a great leadership group and great culture that sort of gave me a lot of experience in 20. And yeah, as a leader, I sort of probably at the start probably put a bit too much pressure on myself to sort of do something for the club and all that. But I sort of just took some lessons from that and just tried to unite everyone, I guess, through the COVID-19 when we couldn't train or do much together. So yeah, I guess I ended up sort of running a few training sessions.
Right, I think we'll go straight to the question. So we've got the NAB League draft testing. So we're heading into the draft period and we're doing the testing. Now, back in the day, there was, I think the beep test was the main one, but there's the yo-yo test, the 20-minute sprint, the standing reach, the jumping reach. Can you go through the testing mechanisms and the kicking and whatever else they do, and just let us know what the tests were and what you did well in? That's what we're after.
Yeah, so the NAB League testing is pretty standard. Like I think there's a few tests that they always do, which is the agility test, 20-meter sprint, vertical jump, the height and weight. And I think they finish off with the yo-yo test. but they're all pretty like sort of big tests. I think the main one that a lot of the recruiters would look at would be the 20-meter sprint, I guess, and they sort of the other tests sort of do a broad kind of evaluation of how you are as an athlete. And I'll probably say I don't test particularly well, nor do I test particularly bad. I'm just sort of average across the board, and just like I still test well, but just nothing too stand out. But I'd say my strongest test would probably be the yo-yo.
Yeah, you're pretty modest, which is good. You've got a good level head on your shoulders, and a good mullet by the look of it, resting on your shoulders as well. It's a cracker. Just before Bill gets into the draft, it looks good. Just before Bill gets into more of the draft type space, just wanted to ask you, did you speak with many clubs heading into the draft? Did you have many interested, obviously knowing that you're an NGA player or NGA Academy type player with Hawthorn, did you speak with many other clubs?
Yeah, I spoke with, across my sort of draft experience, probably spoke to pretty much every club except a couple. Probably a couple of clubs sort of showed more interest than others, obviously, but most clubs sort of tried to just get to know me a bit and did their interviews, and it was quite similar, to be honest, to my other mates who were also prospects as well.
Yeah.
Like they all got kind of a similar experience to what I had, but I probably just in the end had a few less interviews sort of leading up to the draft, and it sort of as the draft order was going to be worked out and all that. So yeah, it was pretty similar, to be honest, to the normal non-academy prospect.
So the Journey to the Draft video was released late March, I think. How much? And we've obviously watched it as it made our research a lot easier than it would otherwise have been in a normal year. But how much footage did they actually have to follow you around and take to pull that together?
Yeah, so it sort of started across the whole year, 2020. So they interviewed me at sort of Eastern Rangers training and a lot of other different scenarios, and sort of came to my house, did a bunch of interviews there, and across the year sort of accumulated a few sort of even online sort of interviews as well, as they couldn't come into my house, and they sort of got me to record videos of myself doing stuff, which is a bit awkward, but they sort of just tried to get as much content as they could, I guess, through a stage where it was probably hard for them to actually get it themselves. So yeah, it was sort of a good experience, like with all the interviews and stuff. Like I got to learn a lot about sort of the media and how to sort of handle all the questions and all that. So it was definitely a good experience from that end.
Yeah. So did you feel like it put any extra pressure on you kind of through that year that everything was all going to happen?
Not really, I'd say. I guess it was just part of the experience, and I sort of embraced it as sort of part of the journey. And I guess the most pressure that I sort of got was from myself. So I guess that didn't really affect me too much in terms of the nerves and expectation of getting drafted, because I always had that expectation of myself that I was going to get there. But yeah, it was sort of helped me embrace the experience, and Yep.
Now, coming to the actual draft day, which is well shown in the video also, as it got sort of through the top 10, top 20, heading towards 35, how were your feelings on the day? And I guess when North Melbourne did call your name out, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, it was an interesting experience, and one that I'll never forget. Like, I was pretty nervous throughout the whole night, because obviously, like, anything can happen in a situation like the draft night. And I sort of was at this venue with a few of my fellow teammates / friends. So the manager sort of organised an event for all his players. So I was part of that, and all my mates got called out before I did. So I was sort of waiting around a bit. And yeah, I guess once we got to around pick 20 towards pick 30, I was getting a bit nervous, as that was probably the range I thought I was going to get picked up at. And yeah, I was lucky enough for North Melbourne to match the bid on me. It was a bit like surprising that it was North Melbourne, but sort of worked out all right.
Had you been told by the Hawks that they were going to match bids, or do they keep their cards to their chest?
Yeah, so the Hawthorn recruiter called me a few days before the draft and just sort of said that he didn't sort of say, yeah, we're definitely going to match the bid, but he sort of indicated that anything after their second pick, you should be pretty confident that we'll sort of match it. And sort of, that he just gave me that indication that sort of after their second pick, which was, I think, 29, or ended up being 29, but it was probably a bit earlier, 24, I think, just due to all the NGA bids and all that.
Yep.
Okay, let's move along to you've been drafted. We know it must have been a huge feeling getting drafted. Then the fun stuff starts. So you start pre-season, and now we're getting into the season itself. Right? What does the average day of an AFL footballer look like? How does it feel like? What's your commitments? What does it look like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I guess it varies depending on the day and sort of whether it's pre-season or in-season. Sort of hard training, where it was just basically get really early, around 7, out on the track by about 8:30, and you train until about 12, and then those sessions were always big with a lot of running at the end and just in the hot weather, and those were like the real hard sessions. And after that, you'd sort of go in, have lunch, and then have like a 3-way rotation with weights and massage and all that stuff. So you sort of got out at about 4 o'clock, so it was a pretty full day, and those were like 3 times a week in pre-season. Yeah, I guess right now a typical day would be get in about 8 o'clock and sort of have a massage and sort of stretching and just preparation for training, and normally have a sort of meeting before training, go out and train after that.
Comes around 1. I think every player's dream would be opening their account, debuting on round 1 of an AFL season. I won't go into the details of this too much, but you were the first ever person to debut as a sub and not go on the field. But we'll go back to the feeling of what it was like getting selected in your first game. Give us the rundown of how all that panned out.
Obviously, a unique experience for most AFL debuts. Obviously, I didn't get to actually play any of the game, but I sort of also got to run out with the team, and it felt like I was going to play a full game.
You're lucky enough to land at a team who are coached by arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time. How has it been to obviously to go through your training and your early days of your footy career under Clarko, and what have been your first impressions, and what do you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, so the day after he got drafted, he came to my house with Jack Gunson and sort of introduced himself to me and the family. So that's why I sort of properly met him. I saw him a couple of times when I was in at the club as an NGA sort of player, but I didn't really talk to him too much then. But yeah, he's a really nice guy, and sort of really sort of gives me a lot of advice and stuff. And on the training track, I remember the first day sort of gave me a few technical skills advice regarding my kicking, and just little things like that here and there that help a lot. And sort of after games we play, we sort of get sort of a little feedback comment, and those are always quite insightful to see where you're at and what you can improve. And in meetings, he always contributes a lot. Like he knows much about the game, and as a first year player, it's great to learn from someone like that who's so experienced and has so much knowledge of the game and how it's played. Yeah,
and now being in the Hawks, inner sanctum, full time now for a few months. What have been your opinions on some of the other players, and are there any that stand out for either their kind of approach to the game or any dirt you want to share on any of the Hawks players for our listeners?
Coming in as a new player, it's obviously a bit daunting at first, but yeah, as soon as I stepped into the door, they were all really welcoming and sort of embraced all the new boys. And like on the training track, if I do something wrong or make a mistake, or they always just come up to me and just give me really good feedback on how I can improve. And yeah, we've got a really good young group of boys who just want to improve. And yeah, it's really evident in the way we're playing at the moment, sort of still learning our game plan, but sort of just taking the game on. And yeah, it's just everyone's just really eager to learn. And someone who definitely sort of stood out to me with Tom Mitchell. Just his professionalism and work ethic is sort of next to none. He definitely deserves everything that he's got so far in his career. And yeah, it's just the way he goes about training and the energy he brings to always do. Yeah, he's been a great role model so far.
Yeah, right. So at least you can, if you want to win a Brownlow, that's what you got to do. Now, off the field, you're trying to keep it a bit balanced. You're currently studying at uni. What are you studying, and how do you balance that with the footy day to day?
Yeah, so at the moment, studying Bachelor of Arts at Monash, and I'm only doing one subject a semester, so the workload's pretty low. And I'm doing sort of psychology at the moment, just to give it a crack and just a bit of point of difference outside of football. And yeah, it's been good so far. Like, I'm still learning how to balance the two together. You know, a lot of the time when I get home from training, I'm pretty tired and sort of don't have the energy to do the study. But yeah, I guess it kind of takes me back to last year at school, the year before, where, you know, it was basically school was a priority and football was kind of the release. But now I guess it's changed a bit, where football is a priority and study's a bit of a release, I guess.
Yeah, that's terrific to hear. Let's go into your goals for the season. So you probably had a goal at the start of the season to play a game. You've debuted. What's your goals for the remainder of the 2021 season?
Yeah, I guess, well, the main one is just get a game and just try and get some consistency with my football and hopefully consistently be a part of the best 22. But obviously it's been challenging because I guess I was sort of felt that I was in that sort of mix, especially round one and being sort of chosen as a sub. But sort of it's been good to play some consistent games in the VFL the last couple of weeks. And I guess I just want to get some consistency in my football, and, you know, whenever I'm ready to play AFL, I'll be ready. Just whenever the coaches, you know, think I'm ready, I'll be ready. So just getting consistent footy in and hopefully playing a few games and, yeah, just keep getting better.
Yeah, I had you in my team all summer for the super coach. But just at the last minute, I had to change you out. It wasn't only because I wanted everyone on the field in the first game. You know, everyone should be playing. But do you get into super coach yourself?
No, not really. I've never really done it before, to be honest. But yeah, a few of my mates do and text me to see if I'm playing or not, so they can put me in or leave me out. So
yeah, I had to hit Andrew Creer. He's I think he's in charge of well-being and he's well-being and leadership manager at the Brisbane Lions. And I had Harry Sharp. I wanted to use him as the captain's loophole last week, and I hit him up. Is he playing? Is he playing? Is Lockie Neal still in? And he goes, mate, that's you can't do that. It's I'm throwing the game. I could be, you know, bringing the game into disrepute. But all right. So close to our backyard, do you have any knowledge of any of the footy that's been played and developed over here in our region?
no, not really, to be honest. Like, obviously, I know of the Port Adelaide sort of affiliation, I guess, that they've had with China in the past few years. But my education of football in China is pretty low, and definitely something I want to sort of explore and learn more about what's going on over there in terms of football.
Yeah. Do you have any visions or dreams of being involved in the development of the game abroad, particularly in China?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, with my Chinese heritage as a unique sort of thing in the AFL, I'm really proud of that heritage, and I want to use it for good in sort of developing more sort of representation of football in China and in Asia as well. But I guess the first thing for me to do is just play good football and make a name for myself in the AFL, because without that, I won't have the platform to be able to do that. So I guess my football ability and sort of what I do in the football field hopefully takes care of that. All that stuff sort of leads to me being able to have that platform, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, very well grounded young fella. Look, what I will say, the average AFL footballer lasts 4 years and 42 games. Once you hit the 42 game mark and you've signed another 2 or 3 year deal, we'll come back to you and we'll offer you an AFL Asia ambassador role. How do you think about that?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, no, brilliant. No, we'll definitely hook you up, mate. We'd love to get you involved in some sort of capacity moving forward, but we'll allow you to develop into a fine footballer first and reach some of those goals and expectations you have on yourself. We're going to get into a bit of a tribal sport friendly fire round. It's one of our key sponsors here at AFL Asia, Tribal Sport. David Lake, the winless AFLW head coach of the Gold Coast Suns this season. Just finishing up, we're into the prelim round. I think preliminary finals this weekend, so up the Crows. Hopefully they can make it 3 out of 4 premierships, given that there wasn't a flag last year. All your apparel needs, get in touch with Big Lakey and the team at Tribal Sport. They'll look after you for season 2021. Now, do you have a nickname, Connor?
I have a couple, I guess. CD's one, C Downs. Just don't get thrown around a bit. So
yeah.
Don't mind that one personally, but
what's your preferred positions on the field?
Probably where I'm playing now on the wing, and a bit of half forward as well.
I'll jump into them, mate. So, who have been the best players that you've played with, and then who are the best players that you've actually played against through the whole, the system up to now?
Probably playing NAB against sort of Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson. They were really strong players when I was playing, and just you could obviously in the grand final, the NAB grand final that I played in, Matt Rowell ended up having 44 touches, and just shows that in big games, he really stepped up, and he's probably definitely the best player I've played against in my underage years. But another one that is a pretty good mate of mine, Will Phillips. He's always been sort of a prominent player in juniors, and we've had a few good battles over the years, and
And who would you say has been the best teammates that you've had the privilege of playing with?
Yeah, I'd say all the Eastern boys back in sort of my bottom age year, sort of Mitch Morales, Lockie Stapleton, Josh Clark, James Ross, just a few of those boys who sort of didn't get drafted, but I feel like they really deserve to be on AFL lists. And they're really unlucky because they had the most consistent seasons ever and were sort of really prominent players, but unfortunately didn't get the opportunity. They were really sort of strong leaders of the club and really paved the way for me and helped me develop as a leader.
I just want to go on a bit of a tangent there. Sorry, Matty.
You're right.
Given that some of those guys, 2020 was potentially their year to stake a claim to step up. Do you feel like there's a chance for guys that didn't get to play in 2020 to still go around in 2021 and come back into the calculations to get drafted this year?
Yeah, for sure. Like one of my good mates, Corey Preston, he's at Eastern Rangers this year. He sort of didn't have much NAB League exposure last year, and he was sort of on the radar towards the end of the season. But he had a good start to this year, actually kicked 4 goals the other week, and I think he's definitely a good chance to get picked up mid-season. He's just an example of, there's a lot of blokes out there that are sort of going back to underage football this year who missed out last year, and I think a lot of the clubs would still have their eye on those boys and how they go with the mid-season opportunities there are. And obviously, the NAB League being changed to under 19 this year is definitely going to help those boys.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to throw someone under the bus or some teammates. Who's your most annoying teammates at the Hawks?
Oh, I wouldn't say annoying, but Big Denver loves a good chat, and he's a good fella.
Well done.
All right, we'll flick to another one. We'll round it up pretty quickly. But if you had to go out on a meal, your choice. You don't have to pay these. It's 3 guests that you'd like to invite. Could be anyone, famous sports people, museos, anyone you like.
Oh, I love to pick the brains of Michael Jordan and just to analyse sort of his psychology, and I hear he performs so well. So I definitely bring him along, and his trainer, Tim Grover, who I've read his book and stuff. He's a pretty sort of knowledgeable guy, and I'd also like to meet him and have a chat to him. So probably those 2.
I think Michael Jordan's come up in every
pretty much
every dinner party list so far.
Yeah, he's going to be busy. Yeah. Now, this is we save our most difficult question almost till last. We make you talk about yourself for an hour, and then the final tribal talks question is normally, can you tell us 3 things that people wouldn't know about you?
Yeah.
It's a pretty quick drop it at the end.
I don't know, I guess. Sort of like I'm pretty intense on the field and at training, but off the field I'm pretty relaxed and like to do my own thing, I guess.
Yep.
I like to read books.
Yeah.
Not really novels, but sort of anything mindfulness related or things that help the mind. I sort of really enjoy that kind of stuff, and yeah, I just love music and playing guitar and all that stuff.
To round out proceedings today, we normally get people to give us their. We'll go with how good's footy in Asia. So I'll give my example, then we'll get you to give us one at the end here. How good's footy in Asia?
Let me try and think. John Gordon, Alfred till Henhal.
Wow. That'll get some ratings. We'll get that one together pretty quick behind the scenes there. Connor Downie, we've had some technical difficulties today, but it was fantastic to catch up with you. You're a really level-headed young man. Just starting his career. We'll definitely come back and have a chat with you some stage down the track when you've ticked a few boxes off career-wise. And we'd love to get you on board as an AFL Asia ambassador in good time.
Absolutely.
But today, you've been an absolute superstar. Wish you all the best moving forward and have a great season ahead.
Sure. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the experience.
Yeah, we'll catch up with you soon, and all the best for the Hawks this season. This is Matty Gale from Osaka, Japan, Billy Bang Bang Krang from Saigon, and Connor Downie down there in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. We look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thanks for your time. We'll catch up again soon. Thank you very much for joining How Good's Food in Asia, episode 20.